Hope, well, of course there was hope, not just for one team in India, but of course for New Zealand and Pakistan. Let's take you a little bit back in Group A of Women's T20 World Cup in Dubai. When Australia and India faced at the Sharjah cricket ground, the equation was especially simple from the Indian point of view. Win a match and they were able to make it to the semi-final of the T20 World Cup. Now, if they would have lost that match, then it would have been little more complicated, because then they were dependent on Pakistan to beat New Zealand by not by significant margin, but by enough margin for India to make it to the semi-final. What happened in Sharjah? Australia batted first and scored 151 runs, and in chase India fell short by 9 runs despite an unbeaten half century by their captain Harmanpreet Kaur. When things moved from Sharjah to Dubai for the final group stage match of Group A, the equation was again simple, but for New Zealand, they had to beat Pakistan, didn't matter whatever the margin was, and they were through to semi-final for the first time in 8 years, and that is exactly what happened. Even when Pakistan's bowler did their absolute best and Pakistan's fielder dropped as many as 8 catches, New Zealand only managed to score less than 120, less than run a ball in their first innings. But what had changed at that time was that Pakistan opted to go for the chase and lost wickets in clusters. They made a lot of changes in their batting lineup. For example, Alia Riaz, who usually bats lower in the order, came up to open with Muniba Ali. Everyone tried to give their best, but well, it wasn't to be. And as a result of that, New Zealand, led by Sophie Devine, have now made it to the semi-final of the T20 World Cup alongside Australia from Group A, while the likes of India, Sri Lanka and Pakistan, all 3 subcontinent teams from the group, are out of the World Cup. What went wrong for India, especially in the match against Australia, was that even when they took 2 early wickets in the power play, and one of them was Beth Mooney, who has been exceptionally consistent not just against India but in this World Cup as well, and they got her wicket and Georgia Wareham's wicket inside the power play, but such is Australia's depth that it all came through and they scored 151 runs in first innings. In chase, what Shafali Verma did was probably the best thing to do in those conditions, is that she went for runs, she went for big shots, and that was, even though the innings ended prematurely, that was probably one of the best innings by Indian batter in this tournament, because she was just going for runs, and that is what you are supposed to do. The partnership between Deepti Sharma and Harmanpreet Kaur was the highlight of the batting innings from the Indian point of view, but that also didn't last long. And if you look at it from the critical point of view, there was a little bit of brain fade, with sometimes Kaur standing at the other hand and other batters not taking the responsibility. But one of the most important turning point of the match, as admitted by stand-in Australian captain Talia Magra, was the 17th over bowled by Megan Schutt, where she gave away just 1 run. That is something that did cost India a lot, and then the pressure increased eventually in the later overs, and the final over bowled by Annabel Sutherland, where she and team collectively were able to take 4 wickets and give away, I think, just 2 runs. That did turn things around for India, and it felt like there was a hope till that 17th over bowled by Megan Schutt, but later there was no hope of India chasing down that total, even though Sophie Molyneux's over went for runs. And there are too many ifs and buts that are involved in what would have happened if someone like Harmanpreet Kaur would have taken a strike, and she probably would have been able to manage 2 sixes and push India's cause. But looking in hindsight is always a nice thing, but we don't know if it could have happened or would have happened. So the conclusion of all of this is that for the first time since 2016, India are not in the semi-final of the T20 World Cup. They had, as Harmanpreet Kaur had said before coming to Dubai, that this is probably one of the best teams that they have selected. I do agree with it that it is one of the best teams that they were selected, but because a lot of chopping and changing that happened throughout the tournament, and maybe a little bit of less role clarity for every individual that was a part of the squad, those are the two primary reasons that I believe is why India is not in that semi-final. Not playing any international fixtures since Asia Cup final for almost 2 months has also cost India pretty much from the get-go. When New Zealand did turn up against them, there are too many tiny things that India could have done better to be at this stage. But as of now, the Tasman rivals in Australia and New Zealand are going to the semi-final from the group of death, and India unfortunately have to go back home and go back to the drawing board and get ready for the home World Cup in one day format in next year in 2025.